start that recording. Give me a second to turn off the transcript because it always throws me off when we're having the conversation. Welcome everybody to our second official Community Advisory Board meeting. Glad to have you all here. And we do have some new members with us. So I want to make sure that we do introductions today. Our new people are on the telephone. How about if we let you all get started, Nick or Alan, which one of you wants to go first?
Go ahead.
Sure, Nick. I could go.
Well, Alan, there's another Alan Thomas.
Oh, there's another Alan.
Let them go. Yes, there's another Alan. Okay, so let's let them go first since they're new, and then we'll let you come back.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
Nick, are you still with us?
It looks like he might have. No, he's still there.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. My name's Nick McCarthy. I live down in Arivaca, Arizona. I worked at PEP, Portable Practical Education Preparation, and manage the Arivaca Community Garden down here. I'm also on the board of the Arivaca Community Center.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. Go ahead, Alan.
My name is Alan Wallen. I run a small WISP wireless internet service provider called Arivaca.com. I service about 300 homes in the Arivaca and Altar Valley area. A few customers in Amado and a few other Santa Cruz River, the Santa Cruz River area, sorry. Been doing it since 2007 and just wanted to be a part of this advisory board to make sure that everybody gets what they need.
Awesome. That's exciting. Thank you so much for being with us today. Let us go ahead. Alan, since Alan Thomas, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Alan Thomas, Deputy Director of IT for Pima County. I'm here on an advisory level. If you need any assistance from an IT perspective, I have some resources. So thank you.
Great. Dr. Garcia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. I'm Francisco Garcia. I'm the Deputy County Administrator and Chief Medical Officer for Pima County. I'm here to support Michelle and our group process.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Amber, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, Wells, and I'm part of Pima County Community and Workforce Development, and I'm a program coordinator.
Thank you. Manny, how about you?
Did you say Manny?
Yep, I sure did.
Okay, no, thought I heard Mandy as well. Good afternoon, everyone. Manny Felix, founder and CEO of AC Cyber Initiative. We provide workforce training around cybersecurity and digital jobs. Think of introduction to careers in related fields for youth, and partner with educators and school districts as well that lead up to jobs in the industry.
Great. And Mike, how about you? Why don't you go next?
All right, Mike Edmonds. I live in Tucson House in the Thrive 05 area in the Ward 3 area of the city of Tucson. I'm also co-host for the Tech Talk radio program. And, I've just been throughout my life, I worked for Microsoft and AOL in their tech support divisions at one time, and just been interested in digital equity, inclusion, been helping with support, training, consultation, etc.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Steve, why don't you go?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Many of you know me. I'm Steve Peters. I coordinate the statewide Arizona Broadband Stakeholder Digital Access Task Force. We're a collaboration of state governments, local governments, nonprofit organizations, education, libraries, and so forth. And many of you, or some of you, already participate with the task force. We meet 8 o'clock every Thursday morning. Have 40 to 60 people who are on that call. We get briefings from the broadband office, state library, and others. I know Michelle's pretty regular, and we have certainly recognized the great work that Michelle has done with putting this office together. So again, Michelle, good job. If any of you are interested in not participating, I'll put my contact information, and you're more than welcome to contact me, and I will add you to our email list.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Chris, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, my name is Christopher Sanderson. I'm a senior lecturer in the College of Education at the University of Arizona. My area of research and scholarship are digital equity and inclusion within the K-12 school districts, also beyond as well. So those are my areas of expertise. I also work in teacher preparation, and I've also worked throughout Santa Cruz, Cochise, and Pima counties in distance
Awesome.
education.
That's great. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Ricardo.
Hello, I'm Ricardo. I'm the IT director for the town of Marana.
Okay, great. Short and sweet. You're so funny. All right. Well, thank you guys very much, everybody, for being here today. To the new people, Alan and Nick, sorry I had to mute you because it was reverberating on my side, so I was muting everyone. So if you do need to ask a question because you aren't online with us, please feel free to unmute yourselves and just jump right in. And so I really want to revisit something real quickly so that we are all on the same page with who is in our meeting today. Okay. Alan Thomas and Amber Wells and Caroline Lewis, who could not be here with us today, are Pima County staff who are subject matter experts who are here in a technical capacity to assist to move things forward for us as far as the county is concerned, okay? Dr. Garcia is our Deputy County Administrator and provides support to the Office of Digital Inclusion to make sure that any kinds of initiatives or any kind of work that we're doing aligns with the strategic practices of the county, and really looking at resources that, you know, he might have awareness of that we may not know about. And so that is where he can help us with that. Everyone else on the call is a community advisory board member, okay? And Nick and Alan are our newest members. That is part of the goal that we were trying to accomplish, is making sure that we have people from all walks of life, all community-based organizations, as well as educators, people who are very involved in digital efforts, and the digital inclusion ecosystem, just regular community members, people from rural communities. So Arivaca is very rural. And really talking, the story about how Arivaca.com came to be is a very interesting story. And I, at a future meeting, because we did talk previously about having presentations from each other, so we kind of know what each other is doing within the community. We were going to have a presentation from Montserrat, but from Pima College, but she was unable to attend today's meeting due to a conflict. So we will have to do that at a future meeting. So we will reschedule that. Okay. We are, a couple of people are on vacation. So Carlos Valles from the Sahuarita Food Bank is not here with us today, and Jennifer Stanowski from Literacy Connects is not here with us today. And so those individuals are also community advisory board members. So we look forward to meeting them all together in the future. Any information that is put in the chat or that is recorded today is on Pima County's website. And so I want to make sure I will put this in the chat, but I will also send out an email So everyone has this information. Our meetings are posted on Pima County's website, as are the links to the agendas, the meeting summaries, and the video of each meeting. Okay, so one of the very first things we need to do today is really just talk about our agenda and what we're going to go through. The first item on the agenda is our welcomes, which we just did. And then the second item is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Because of issues on our, because of some updates to the website, it kind of broke the link to the to the minutes from last meeting. So literally all of you were probably unable to see those minutes, and we can approve these next time to give you an opportunity to take a look at those minutes and just kind of go through them and see if there's anything that we are missing from the last meeting that needs to be included. If not, then we will just, go ahead and approve those minutes at the next meeting. Okay. So the bulk of our work today is about reviewing our bylaws and making sure that we are including everything that we should. I appreciate the input that I was given, and there are a couple of things that I wanted to just go over real quickly with our bylaws, and this is something that will also be posted on, that is posted on our website as a draft at this moment. Once we vote to approve these bylaws, those will be it'll be the official document for guiding us. We have in the first paragraph, asking to add some information about for all individuals and communities throughout Pima County. I thought that was a great addition to our mission. And then in 2.02 of the bylaws, this is the purpose of the board, which provides recommended actions and policies that remove barriers to broadband development. And it goes through all of the different things that are important to our group. So if you have any comments or thoughts about this section, we'll come back and we'll go through each section. I just want to kind of run through some things real quickly, but we will go through the information together and see if there's any edits or updates that we need to make so that we can finalize this today, vote for them to be good, and then we can move on to other topics, okay? Membership wise, basically our board, we're trying to make sure that we have no less than 10 people, which we now have 10 people on our board, recruited from all areas of the community and digital inclusion ecosystem. So this will include members from local municipalities, community helping organizations, state agencies, internet service providers, schools, workforce and economic development departments, and community members. So we do have that good range of individuals participating with us now, but I always want to make sure that we're asking the question, who's not at the table? Whose voice do we need to be hearing in this conversation? So I always want to have a discussion about who else could participate with us on the community advisory board. How do we want to go about having that conversation with them? And what support can I provide to you all, or do you want to send them to me so that I can contact them? Okay. And then in that membership portion, there is a section here where it talks about term of office, and Ricardo made a suggestion in there, but then I was kind of looking at it. It currently says will serve up to 4 2-year terms. Well, that's 8 years total. Do we want this to be a total of 4 years or a total of 8 years? Okay, so that's something that we can talk about as we go through that. So that's something that I want to make sure that we're looking at. And yeah, that's it. So we'll go back to the top. Does anybody have any comments from the last meeting as far as what is on the bylaws that you have a suggestion for that we need to input in here? No, Steve, you're muted.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Michelle, as I think I've mentioned with some of the other work, is that you begin to be at the beginning about broadband rather than talking about broadband and digital inclusion. And so I know you kind of mentioned it later, but I don't think you even use the term digital inclusion except for the office. But I think you really want to talk at the very beginning about broadband and digital inclusion. Because that's really, a major focus beyond broadband for the office.
So, what kind of a sentence should we add in that talks about digital inclusion?
Well, you can even add it to the first to A, or you can create a separate one that says recommended actions and policies that remove barriers to development of broadband infrastructure and promote digital access, digital inclusion, including things like, if you want to talk about literacy and use of devices and that sort of thing, or not, but at least that should be at the beginning, in my opinion.
Okay, so I added that right in there. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
I think this is fine, but I think we also need to make sure that the bylaws are very general as well, because we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into something where somebody from outside of this group reviews what we say and say, well, you didn't do this where you said it here and you've listed it here. So that's generally the agencies that I've been part of and boards I've been a part of generally are broad because of scope. And if we try to be very fine and define specific things, then we'll be expected to do that as well. That's in my opinion.
Okay, that's great. So let's just read through some things since we have people on the telephone and it's very difficult for them to participate in this way unless they understand what we're talking about. So in section 2, the mission and purpose of our group, the mission of the board is to work in coordination with the Office of Digital Inclusion to make recommendations to Pima County to guide the development of broadband infrastructure, increased access to devices and tools for connectivity, and the implementation of digital literacy initiatives for all individuals and communities throughout Pima County. So we have 3 foundational things that we work on, and that is making sure that everyone has access to high-speed, affordable, reliable broadband internet, access to devices and tools as is appropriate for them. Okay, so that may look different for each individual. And then really supporting digital skill building initiatives, be that it is basic skills. So for someone who doesn't have the ability to use a computer and they need to learn how, or if it is for hang on, sorry about that. I think I would turn off my phone. Or if it's someone attempting to upskill as they are looking for a different job, okay? And then we want to make sure that we are helping people move through and use the computer in a safe way, all right? Safety and security online is a big thing. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing that safety within those digital literacy initiatives. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that before we move on to the section about the purpose of the board?
So Michelle, going back to the increased access to devices and tools, and I would say rather than just for connectivity, but to enable people to effectively use internet and technology for education, economic development, et cetera, if you want to add that in.
So let's figure out how to say this as succinctly as possible because it's supposed to be a mission statement, right? So we could just say increase access to devices and tools and take out for connectivity, but then describing lower in the purpose, because we are talking about those different things within the purpose. So as far as the mission statement goes, how do we do that in a more succinct manner?
Michelle, I mean, I I was looking at that definition of digital inclusion, and that's where I added the all individuals and communities piece.
Mhm.
Maybe we could look at that one and look at potential options for being able to consolidate some of the wording in the mission statement.
Okay. So. Okay, let's see what NDIA says here. I don't want Digital Inclusion Week. Okay, so they're just going to keep going to Digital Inclusion Week. Let's try digital equity instead, because they have a different, they talk about different definitions.
Yeah, on the team chat, I just posted the link that I had used as like digital.
Oh, the Digital Inclusion 101, yeah.
101, right.
Okay, let's look at that then.
So Michelle, I'm looking for the
Yes, sir.
stuff that I've written for us.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find something here that's fairly succinct.
Okay, so what it says here is digital inclusion refers to the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to and use of information and communication technologies. This includes 5 elements: affordable, robust broadband internet service, internet-enabled devices that meet the needs of the user, access to digital literacy training, quality technical support, and applications and online content designed to enable and encourage self-sufficiency, participation, and collaboration. Digital inclusion must evolve as technology advances, and digital inclusion requires intentional strategies and investments to reduce and eliminate historical, institutional, and structural barriers to access and use technology. So we, in our statement, are incorporating the affordable, robust broadband internet service by talking about broadband infrastructure, the internet-enabled devices that can meet the needs of the users. That's why it says devices and tools for connectivity, and then access to digital literacy and training. That doesn't mean that we don't provide technical support and applications. It's just a 3-pronged approach. So how would we want to maybe change up that wording? Is that something that we're looking at here, that we want to change up this wording of the mission of the board? The mission of that we're doing, period.
And so this is where I would recommend consolidating 2.01, the mission statement, whereas you have the purpose that is pretty specific and comprehensive. So I would recommend something similar to the first sentence of the digital inclusion definition that we saw on that webpage.
Right. So if we look, www.pima.gov/connect-Pima. Okay. Right here, this is a simplified version of what is on our digital inclusion, our Connect Pima digital infrastructure and inclusion action plan. It's to Connect Pima's mission is to bring equity and inclusion to how Pima County community members access affordable and reliable high-speed internet connections. So it's really, there's that summarized piece of things, okay? And then, sorry about that. Then here it talks about the different parts of that, improving broadband infrastructure. So you see our short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. Implementing digital literacy initiatives and those goals as well, and then increasing access to devices and tools. Okay, and the goals that are associated with that. So when we look at our actual strategic plan, oh, of course, it's going to have a problem today. Sorry. Hang on. Our engaged space is having a moment. So that's where the that's where our plan is at. Okay. Since the link isn't going to work right now, we'll come back to that. All right. But that's what we have going on in those places. So in the chat, Steve wrote, while everyone needs to get connected, in addition to affordable internet access, all Arizona citizens must also have affordable devices, skills, and technical support to enable them to use the devices, the internet, and applications effectively, digital literacy and web literacy skills, and access to digital content, applications, and other resources. So I feel like there's a whole bunch going on in this particular mission statement that we're looking at that maybe we need to adjust. And so should we go, let's go through the purpose, the statements that are within the purpose, and then let's see if we can come back and look at that mission statement and incorporate what we've written in the purpose. How about if we do that? Okay. So it says the purpose of the, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. So it says the purpose of the board is to recommend actions and policies that remove barriers to the development of broadband infrastructure and at Steve's suggestion, and promote digital inclusion. Okay. Recommend actions and policies that help individuals access and retain affordable and reliable high-speed broadband internet. C, promote collaboration and coordination between governmental agencies, non-governmental organizations, advocates, and the broadband development community to improve access to equipment and digital skills to expand opportunities for economic growth for rural communities. D, prioritize recommendations that reduce long-term demand for public subsidies for affordable and reliable high-speed internet and access to devices and tools, including those that address poverty, improve opportunity, and create community wealth. E, annually assess the impact of Pima County's efforts to reduce barriers to broadband development, increase access to internet and equipment, and increased access to digital skills trainings, and issue a report to the Board of Supervisors in coordination with the Office of Digital Inclusion. F, provide oversight and transparency for funding allocated to the Office of Digital Inclusion for the purpose of improving internet connectivity and access to training, devices, and tools across Pima County, and recommend sustainable sources of funding. G, make recommendations to the Office of Digital Inclusion to guide, change, and improve the way Pima County develops solutions and innovations regarding broadband services, access to equipment, and skills for digital inclusion. And then H, share board findings and discussions with the broader community. So I think a lot of the things that, like you mentioned, Steve, in the comments there, and what was talked about as far as the mission statement goes, is included in the purpose of the board. So how do we make the mission statement a bit more succinct, I guess?
I just threw in a suggestion in the chat, kind of starting a first sentence leading into the overall, almost an about us for the advisory meeting, and then leading to the mission statement, which I think is sort of succinct and may hopefully cover a lot of what is said in section 2.02.
So let me read what Manny put in, okay? It says the Pima County Digital Inclusion Advisory Board, in collaboration with the Office of Digital Inclusion, is committed to advancing equitable access to broadband infrastructure, devices, and digital literacy across Pima County. Our mission is to recommend strategic actions and policies that remove barriers to connectivity, promote affordable and reliable high-speed internet, and foster digital skills development. What do you guys think about that?
Something along the lines, right? It definitely needs finessing, but it's definitely a lot to.
I think it flows nicely. Yes.
It's a lot to try to cover in very little space.
What do you guys think about that being our starting point rather than the mission statement that's written here right now? I got a thumbs up.
I'm sorry, Michelle, I was looking at something else. What are you talking about being the mission statement?
Well, in the chat, Manny posted something in the chat there, if you want to take a look at that. And then that will, I think it's a good start. I think it's a good statement instead of just jumping right into the mission. I think I like that pre-sentence that we're committed to those things.
So Michelle, the other thing that the mission statement doesn't say, and I don't know if you want to, is that we're promoting digital inclusion and broadband to promote economic development, education, healthcare, et cetera. I mean, that's really why we're doing all of this, is to be able to improve the lives of citizens.
Mm-hmm.
I know you want to keep the mission statement short, but it seems to me that that's kind of important.
Mm-hmm. So how would that be added in?
Well, I've got some stuff here. Let me pull this up. Let me get this for you. Well, some of this is too much, but I'm going to just add this and then we can edit it if you want to do this.
So my question would be, Steve, does it go in a mission statement or does it go in the purpose, the activities of the board?
I think it's, at least in my opinion, it's more the mission statement, because you're really trying to improve. I mean, the whole purpose is to improve economic development, education, healthcare, et cetera. And we'll achieve that by providing internet and digital inclusion resources.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, I know you're trying to keep it short, but at least in my opinion, that's what we're about.
No, I just think it needs to be succinct. Doesn't necessarily mean, and so when we're adding it in, so foster digital skills development for, because we could add that, because here we put, prioritize recommendations that reduce long-term demand for public subsidies for affordable and reliable high-speed internet and access to devices and tools, including those that address poverty, improve opportunity, and create community wealth. So this right here is talking about that economic development piece that you were
Yep.
saying, though it doesn't say economic development piece, it is addressing that. So I think what you are indicating would probably go right here at the end and fosters digital skills development for, what are those things?
Well, education, economic development, healthcare, you go on and on, but those are kind of the key ones. Yeah, good workforce and economic development.
Okay, and I would say, and foster digital skills. How about a different word than development if we're gonna do workforce development? Attainment? That's kind of a big word, but. How about that?
Sure.
Let's start with that. Let's have everybody ponder this, and at our next meeting, in our next meeting, we can kind of go through this a little bit more, okay? And how about all of the purpose statements? Does anybody have any questions about what's there or that you think the board should be doing additionally? So this is what you as board members will actually do to help us improve digital inclusion, and recommendations or ways that you will work with our office, the Office of Digital Inclusion, for us to make sure that we're informing the county through the county administrator's office as to what should be priorities for our community. And that is something that we will be doing through a strategic planning process. But this is kind of the short and sweet of it, even though that is quite lengthy.
Michelle, one other question for the purpose section is, can the advisory board make recommendation, or write letters of support or recommendation for any grants that organizations may be applying for? So as an organization, can we say we support this effort? Just the sheer nature of what we're going to be doing, we may get approaches as far as, do we collectively support, or how do we work with other organizations basically
Right.
in making those
So
recommendations?
that would be in coordination with my office, okay? Because as an advisory board, you are advising our office about
Gotcha.
how we should be doing things in Pima County. So if you feel that we should be supporting an effort, that's a conversation that we have as a group, you have with us, then I talk to, and that is putting the weight of Pima County behind something. So that is important for us to have that conversation with county administration as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Michelle, what about that you're looking to this board to help identify potential funding sources for broadband and digital inclusion, and as well as broadband and digital inclusion resources?
So right here in F, providing oversight and transparency for funding allocated to the Office of Digital Inclusion for the purpose of improving internet connectivity and access to training devices and tools across Pima County. And it says, and recommend sustainable sources of funding. We can add something to that. Because this could be, okay, the community advisory board meets and we're all having a discussion. We're like, hey, do you know that there is Digital Equity Act funding? Are you applying for that? How are we working together to do that? Now, we're already doing that, but it's just, as a group, if you become aware of something, we would evaluate it together as to whether or not that is something that we should pursue. And is it sustainable? Sustainable is a good way to go about that. Okay. So should we change or add some wordings associated to the funding there? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if you want to add just to help identify to that statement. Identify and recommend sources of funding.
Identify and recommend. I like that. And sources of funding to advance digital inclusion in the community. How about that?
And I really like that you included sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sustainable is an important word.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to funding. Okay. Any other thoughts on here as far as purpose goes, or the statements in the purpose?
Michelle, I have a question. So when we're talking about us serving as an advisory board for the Office of Digital Inclusion, are there any things that your office covers that we shouldn't be duplicating or reinventing the wheel?
So my office is 100% responsible for the activities associated with our current digital infrastructure and inclusion action plan. If you don't have a copy of that, I will make sure that you do have a copy of that. Our main priority at this very moment is the implementation of the Enabling Middle Mile Broadband Infrastructure grant that we got for building the almost 140-mile fiber optic ring around Pima County's urban core. Okay. Along with that, our efforts in order to improve digital inclusion, right, in our community is to make sure that we are addressing the parts that are missing. So digital navigators, and this is following from the best practices as identified from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, from best practices across the board. This is not something that we are making up new, okay? And so digital inclusion practices means people have to have access to the internet in their homes. Yes, we can put it in the community. Yes, we can have places for them to go to, and those are bridging solutions. I will call those bridging solutions because individuals need to be able to have that access in the home. Otherwise, they don't have the same opportunity as people who do. Okay. So our communities that are suffering from the lack of that the most are our rural communities. So those are things that we need to look at. And why is that? Because they're very far away from the infrastructure that is built within our urban core. City of Tucson, Marana, Oro Valley, all of you have various infrastructures that are in place that as you go farther out in your community, there's less and less of it. Okay. And so that's something that Pima County as a whole needs to look at. But what is my office supposed to do? It's not Pima County doing everything. It's me talking to you, Ricardo, as a member of the Marana government entity, and like, how do we work together to leverage and expand that reach? Okay. And that would hold true for Oro Valley and Sahuarita and the city of Tucson. And how are we doing that? Okay. How do we work with our tribal nations? And so that is something that it is my job to bring us all together, and not just Pima County by itself. How do we lead the way in the Southern Arizona region? How do we work with the counties that are in this region to further that effort? Because this is, at the end of the day, not just about getting access to Pima County, it is about our Southern Arizona region as a whole. It then lifts up, to Steve's point about workforce and economic development, it lifts up the entirety of the region and creates that prosperity for people no matter where they're at. Okay. And so I'll tell you, like our economic development office, they are talking about how small businesses in our rural communities can't do e-commerce because they have poor internet access. So that is something that we as a group could identify recommendations for improving that. Okay, because that is our focus, is on those things. So how would the advisory board work with us? Hey, we heard about this. This is what what are your thoughts on CBRS? And is that something that the county is hoping to use? And if not, how about mesh networks, or how about open networks, or how are we doing this? Like having those conversations about the technologies that we could be using across the county to meet a need. Because while the ideal solution would be broadband in the ground, that is a costly solution when you get really far away from your urban core. Okay. So I think having your expertise to provide those kinds of recommendations or starting the conversations about what we should be looking at is what is important for this advisory board.
So Michelle, I don't mean to just detract from this current discussion, but I don't know how much time we have left in this meeting. Are you going to talk about the competitive grant application and what you guys are planning to do? Because that's deadline's coming up in September 25th. So I don't know if you want to share that. I mean, some of these people may not be aware about that, about that grant, what you're planning, and so forth. So
Absolutely. I'm happy to have that conversation. So let's I stopped sharing my screen. Let's finish up the conversation real quickly about the bylaws. So the other question that I had, and I would like everyone to go through the bylaws. I'm happy to email a copy of the bylaws to everyone to look at and review and give any final recommendations so that we can finish with this particular effort and get that done, because we do need to take the next steps of doing strategic planning. Okay, so our current digital infrastructure and inclusion action plan is a starting point. We need a comprehensive strategic plan that is going to involve community input. Okay, but you all will be the drivers of that effort, and we are going to work with a consultant to kind of move that forward and make sure that we're doing community engagement and that we are hearing from the people in Pima County, not just doing things to people, but doing it with them, right? We're doing this in coordination and collaboration. So we need to get our bylaws all squared away so that we can start with that strategic planning process. And the goal would be for us to create a 5-year plan for what we are going to be doing for Pima County. And you all will be very integral to that coming to fruition. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Michelle, I don't have a question. I just wanted to follow up on what I had brought up. I agree with the point that Chris made earlier about trying to focus on here are the specific thing, not getting too detailed in that sense. And that's why I was asking the question. If there are some items that are listed in our purpose that your office covers very well, I wouldn't want us to duplicate efforts, and I'd rather us to say, okay, we know this is your lane. Here is how we could supplement and support that, and that would give better focus to what we are doing.
So if you notice A through H, I wrote all of those, okay? Because those are the things that I see as a community advisory board, how you would work with my office, okay? And so it's a lot of recommending things, promoting collaboration, really helping me to prioritize what are the important goals and efforts of this office, okay? And really helping to communicate to the greater community what it is that we are working on in Pima County and how we're making a difference and impacting the community, but also getting that feedback from the community, right? And making sure that people are aware that we are a resource, and how we connect them to other resources available in the county. Okay. And so it's a lot of that communication piece, that is going to be important for this board. Okay. Did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, yeah, and that's great to
Okay.
know. It's great to know that this is in collaboration, not overlapping. And that I think we don't want to be duplicating efforts. That's great to
Yeah.
know.
Exactly. And I'm glad you guys brought up that point. And yes, bylaws are meant to be broad in nature, but you can also have things that are procedural, right? So if we create committees or those kinds of things, then you get really kind of, I won't call it into the weeds, but a bit more detailed about what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what that means. Okay. So I will send the bylaws to everybody. We will have everybody have that conversation and bring that back before our next meeting. Okay. The hope is to have our September meeting in person, if that is possible. If it is not, we will have it as a hybrid meeting. I have absolutely no problem with doing that. Okay. We will, I keep putting it on here because we need to nominate a chair and a vice chair of the Community Advisory Board. And since this is our second meeting and we do have some new people to the group, I will just, I feel like this is something that we could probably table till next time as well. The chair and the vice chair, basically it is spelled out in the bylaws. They would help to coordinate these meetings and what the conversation and the topics would be in coordination with our office and how we would make sure to involve other community members and to recruit additional members for our board. Okay. And then action items, talked about the strategic planning process, something that I would like us to undertake once we have completed our discussion about the bylaws. So I would really like to have that finalized before our next meeting, which is on September the 25th, so that any edits that we need to do are completed before that time, and then we can vote on the bylaws. And in the MS Teams environment, I know there were a couple people that were struggling with that, and I will work with each of those individuals offline to get that squared away so they have access to the information, because MS Teams is a collaborative way for us to work together. But we can also put this in OneDrive or Google Docs as well to kind of pull things together in a collaborative way if that seems to work better for everybody else. Okay, so I will ask those questions and you guys can reply back to that when I send out information after today's meeting. And then to Steve's point, the conversation about the digital equity competitive grant. Okay, as you all are aware, the Biden-Harris administration passed the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Digital Equity Act. So there's funding for all of those things. Our middle mile project is part of the infrastructure law, funding that's coming from the infrastructure law. That was monies that were given to Pima County directly from the federal government. BEAD funding is broadband equity access deployment funding, which is also infrastructure funding, but that was an allocation to the state of almost $1 billion. And they are currently working through that process so that they will put forward projects that they hope people will bid on to get fiber to the home in areas that are considered unserved or underserved by FCC maps. Recently, from like March to June, they did the challenge process so that they could update those maps as much as possible with NTIA and FCC. And we should be hearing some more information very soon about how they're going to move forward with that BEAD process. So then the other part of that is digital equity funding, Digital Equity Act funding. There is capacity grant funding and there is competitive grant funding. The capacity grant funding is money that is allocated to the state of Arizona. Just a little under $17 million they were allocated, and they will create a sub-grant process once that is approved by NTIA. And they are looking towards later in the fall, maybe winter of this year, before they release any information about what that process will look like. Well, in the interim, NTIA, National Telecommunications and Information Administration, released the notice of funding opportunity for the Digital Equity Act competitive grant cycle. That is an application that is due by September the 23rd. They are looking to fund things at a level between $5 million and $12 million over a 4-year period. They have priority populations that they are asking us to look at, and it is about digital access, digital inclusion. It is about workforce development. It is about telehealth access, and really making sure that people understand how to use the computer. And so for Pima County, we have had multiple conversations with our other parties and our departments, and looking at what we could potentially do that is an audacious application that would be looked at by NTIA with a good lens. So we have brought together a group of people, and we continue to add people to this group to create an application for a Southern Arizona regional telehealth access program. Okay. This is involving the health departments from Pima County, Santa Cruz County, and Cochise counties. It is with healthcare providers. So TMC, Marana Health Clinic, we have reached out to them to meet and talk with them. El Rio Health Clinic, reaching out to them to have conversations. I recently spoke with the person running the Benson Hospital. So these are healthcare providers and how they might work with us as well as community-based organizations. So Manny, we had a conversation, we talked with Pima College. So Montserrat is part of our community advisory board. And so I've met with other members of Pima College to go through that. U of A Telemedicine, the Southwest Telehealth Resource Center is participating with this. United Way, Literacy Connects, the Arizona Digital Inclusion Network. So Cindy Hogan was part of our Connect Pima task force, and she is the chair of that network at this moment. AZ Strut, who provides refurbished computers, and they work with We Care Tucson. So really kind of coming together with all of that. But there are many other providers and entities that could work with us, okay? There is a framework for telehealth access already in place. So Janet Major, who used to be the director of U of A Telemedicine, she's very involved. Mala from the State Library, very involved in this conversation, and how we could leverage what is already there, best practices and the framework that has already been put together that's got a 20+ year lifespan already, really being put together. So like the Northwest Regional Telehealth Resource Center has created telehealth training for digital health navigators so that they understand that. But after my conversation with TMC today, they are talking about how we could do this from a perspective of the digital inclusion efforts that they have undertaken, as well as Epic, which is their back-end support for their MyChart portals, and that software platform and the efforts that that company is trying to do for digital inclusion. So they've come up with some other ideas on training for digital health navigators. So our process is such that every Monday we are meeting to have the conversation and to work together on what this program would look like. This is not Michelle dictating what it looks like. This is all of us working together to figure that out. So what I've asked of organizations thus far is for them to provide an organizational summary that includes information like what you would put on an About Us page on a website. This is all the information about us. Programs that, a couple of programs that you are particularly proud of or are working on, how the organization can contribute to the grant application and what they bring to the table. And if that organization is expecting any kind of funding, what would that funding be applied to? Then the other thing that we have asked for is a logic model, which really kind of identifies what the individuals hope to accomplish, and so that it demonstrates outcomes. So we are seeking to create a project that demonstrates behavioral change. Okay. And so we're not looking for outputs, we are looking for outcomes, something that improves our community. And so that is the work that is being undertaken right now. And a letter of support template was sent out so that the organizations can begin to identify and quantify what it looks like for them and what they are contributing to our grant project. Because this grant, if we are asking for millions of dollars, has a 10% match, a minimum 10% match. And that match can be cash or it can be in-kind contribution. So all of the organizations are considering what that would be. And so I'll just give an example. If we're going to apply for a project that costs $6 million over a 4-year period, we would need to have a match of no less than $600,000. And so those are the contributions that all of the organizations together would create that $600,000. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So Michelle, from what I can tell, I've actually been on the phone with people today, and Pima County may be the only county in the state that's actually going to be applying for that competitive grant funding. It's
Wow.
a very onerous process, and I assume you know that any of those organizations that you partner with, that they have a very strict reporting requirement, financial requirements, and so forth, which is why a lot of organizations are not going to go after that funding because of the application requirements as well as the reporting requirements.
Absolutely. I'm extremely well aware of it, just because of the reporting requirements that are part of what I have to do for our Enabling Middle Mile grant, and how that works. I want to say that in our group, I am very excited about who is participating because they have significant experience in managing federal grants. So United Way is one, TMC is another. So I'm very excited about that. And that is something also that any of the organizations that are participating, we have already talked about the need to register for SAM.gov to have a unique entity identifier number, and to really kind of go through that process. Some organizations have opted to not receive funding and just give us letters of support. That's okay too.
So they may be able to be contractors later on in the process.
That is correct.
Require that same amount of requirements that becoming a quote partner requires.
That is correct. Yep. There's a lot of things coming, and if you have not received the invitation to our Monday meeting and would like to receive that invitation, please let me know and I will make sure and add you to that. Okay. We are currently 7 minutes over our time. Our meeting today was only supposed to go until 4:30. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments, or would like to see us talk about something else at our next meeting? Nick or Alan, I know you have a lot of, did a lot of listening there. I would like to ask that at our next meeting, that you give a little bit of a story about how airvaca.com came to be, if you would be willing to do that. I don't know if you're talking, you're muted, sorry. Okay. We will come back to that. Does anybody else have any comments, questions, thoughts? I appreciate your time and your attention to this effort. There's a lot going on. Just taking the time to have the discussion about these things and really get our group off the ground can be a bit time consuming. And I really understand that. And I understand that we all are strapped to get things done. So I will send stuff out in an email and would ask that you reply back in the email, or if you are very comfortable with the Teams and you have access to that, making comments or or adding things in Teams, we're great with that. And those individuals that have reached out to me and said, hey, I can't get into Teams, I will help you with that offline. Okay.
Michelle, when is the next meeting that you're planning?
Our next meeting is on September the 25th at 3:30. That's when it's scheduled.
I'll be on vacation, so it's all right.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. So I am happy to like I said, we re-record these, so if you can't be here, that's okay. And if you want to add things, you can respond via email, or if you want to do it in MS Teams, that's okay as well. And then Alan's struggling to unmute. So Alan, if you're okay with having that conversation next time, we look forward to it, okay? All right, anybody else?
Yeah, Michelle, this is Nick.
Go for it.
Could you please email me the minutes from the last meeting just so I can catch up?
Absolutely.
Is that possible?
I certainly can. Cool. Yeah, you got it.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well then let's call our meeting adjourned for today. And if you do have any specific questions that you want to ask me or send my way, feel free to do so. Okay. All right, you guys, go have a great rest of your day. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
I know.
Bye.
Michelle,
Yes, sir.
one question real fast. I didn't want to add to the group. I'm going to reach out